Never judge a book by its cover. Pretty bad advice, right? Isn't the point of the cover to give us an idea of the material inside so we can judge whether we want to read it? Can't we tell that this guy is a successful businessman? That this guy is definitely a chef? These are obvious examples, but whether we like it or not, people consciously or subconsciously read how we present ourselves. So what are we saying? How can we influence the way others see us? How can we use this to gain a deeper understanding of clothing? And why aren't those book covers as accurate as they might appear? You mean that guy wasn't really a chef? This is Amex here. Let's unlock the secret of visual language. Vladimir Nabokov's modern classic Lolita was published in 1955 and has been controversial for the way it depicts the relationship between the narrator and the underage girl he calls Lolita, which I won't detail because I don't want to get demonetized. It makes for uncomfortable reading through the perspective of Humbert, and the point is the way he describes Dolores illustrates that he is obsessive and perverse. It is not meant to be a titillating, horny read, and in fact Nabokov explicitly said when it came to the cover design, there is one subject which I am emphatically opposed to: any kind of representation of a little girl. 1 second. And here I have the Penguin Modern Classics edition of Lolita. Whoops. There are literally hundreds of covers for Lolita at this point. Many of them are suggestive or even erotic. Some of them do highlight the narrator's warped perspective. Others are highly symbolic or deliberately vague so that the contents of the novel are a little bit of a mystery. The point is, the exact same story can be presented in many different ways. Are they trying to work out the most accurate way to present what is quite a difficult book to summarize in an image? No, they want to sell it, and they want to use visual language to depict something that resonates with the reader, even if that isn't 100% faithful to what's inside. When the Stanley Kubrick film adaptation released, they started using the promotional image as the cover, despite the heart-shaped glasses or lollipop not appearing in the book and the girl clearly being the wrong age. She's 16 in the film, but 12 to 14 in the book. Of course, their primary aim was getting readers to judge the book in relation to the latest blockbuster. Doing the movie cover is an insanely common practice to visually ally the book to something the audience might have more of an association with already, or to get across that idea that, well, if they turn this into a movie, then it must be good. This happens even with the loosest adaptations. This, for example, not really that much like the film. You're probably already forming ideas of how this relates to clothing. Clearly, publishers are in the business of using a visual language to manipulate our interpretation of books. Of course, literally using a picture of another piece of media is the most blindingly obvious way this happens, but any book really uses multiple ways to build up a picture in our minds. Take colour, for example. Pastel tones might be an easy summer romance. Rich greens and blues indicate fantasy and intrigue. A no crime novel is complete without blood-red detail. And Ralph Steadman's illustration here is the perfect representation of stream of consciousness insanity. Art style can help us differentiate between wildly fantastical and close to reality. And if it looks like a vaporwave album cover, you know it's a maths textbook. Over time, readers learn to associate certain signals with genres, writing style, importance, and so on. Exactly the same thing is true of clothing. The fun part is, we're the writer and the publisher, so we get to choose what we're saying. What are a few ways we can do that? Colour is probably the clearest example. I'm sure you already have a pretty good understanding of colour theory. Greens and browns suggest an association with nature, growth, comfort. Red is intense and passionate. Black can be mysterious and enigmatic. Purple still has a strong association with wealth and royalty because of the historical expense of making purple dye, even though that's not really literally true anymore. Studies of colour in clothing show people are perceived and treated differently depending on what colour they wear. There are multiple studies of red clothing impacting behaviour. For example, men have been seen as more likely to stop and pick up women hitchhikers wearing red t-shirts, or more frequently matching with them on online meeting sites. Similarly, sports players wearing black kits are perceived as more evil and aggressive in one study, despite their behaviour not changing. So if this video feels evil and aggressive so far, blame the t-shirt. When talking clothing, recognizable brands make a massive difference. People have a lot of perceptions tied up with them. Nike spend absolutely millions of marketing dollars every year to make you associate the swoosh with high performance, athleticism, proactive attitude. There are many streetwear brands you might associate with coolness or cultural awareness, or particular sports like skateboarding. As we talked about last week, those perceptions can be bad as well as good. What about material? Well, heritage fabrics like wool or waxed cotton evoke tradition, authenticity, the outdoors, and colder months. Nylon can be sporty, technical, leans more futuristic. Leather is strong, masculine, timeless. The weight of fabric is important too. Heavy weights are rugged and masculine. More delicate or sheer things are associated with femininity, yes, but also can be luxurious or glamorous. Materials which defy expectation in some way or are non-standard is a great way of changing the perception of a garment and how it fits into the visual language of an outfit. Like when a traditional garment is made from a technical material, or the texture of something really comes to the forefront. The literary equivalent is something like this. The primary reason you're going to read this novel is because of the association with the BioShock brand, so they really put it front and center. In the UK, some bars and clubs don't let people in if they're wearing Stone Island clothing, because that logo communicates "I am a football hooligan" more than pretty much anything else you could be wearing. That association has consequences for people like me who like Stone Island as a brand, but I've literally only been to one football game and I didn't headbutt anyone. This is a copy of Frankenstein here. Just look at how beautiful this thing is. Not just the cover art, but the embossing on the front here, the gold inlay on the pages. You can immediately tell that this book is special, that extra care was taken to put it together. And this tells you that the contents of this book, well, it's important enough to warrant this extra effort being taken. These are all starting points. From here, you can think about other characteristics of clothing and ask yourself, what exactly is it saying? Maybe this is going to lead to you getting excited over making some new fashion purchases. You probably plan on copping some nice new pieces this winter, and the cost of all that really does start adding up. This Galaxy Fold, for example, is pretty crazy if you buy it new, but thanks to this video's paid sponsor Backmarket, you could get 250 quid off something like this just by it being refurbished. Someone else took the hit on buying it new, so you don't have to. It's just like buying from retailers versus marketplaces. And the phone itself is exactly the sort of thing I like, honestly. It's a little bit weird, it's a little bit futuristic, and it's just more interesting compared to all the other phones out there which look super similar. Definitely fits with my style as well. Backmarket sell all their tech with a 25-point charter, so you know it's gonna look and perform great, and I like that it's more sustainable than buying a new phone as well, which is often something we talk about when it comes to buying used versus new clothing. Because with all that cash you're saving, what are you gonna cop? You could grab yourself a nice jacket, a couple of t-shirts, maybe some sneakers. See where I'm going with this? If you're in the market for some new tech, definitely give Backmarket a look. There will be a link in the description where you can do that, and thanks so much to Backmarket for being paid sponsors of the video. Now there are two directions I can take this conversation. One is the Sigma grind set direction. Want people to take you seriously? Wear this, put your suit on to order coffee and watch as the employees tremble in fear and give you a large upgrade for free. And yes, we can use visual language to alter people's perception of us, just as book publishers use the cover to alter the perception of the book. Our personality, our interests, our financial status, all these things can be constructed by thinking about visual language. But I think it's more interesting to consider this as a way to evolve our personal style and create outfits with a visual harmony that might be hard to articulate otherwise. For example, take these two pairs of Maharishi snow pants. One of them are black cotton. They're tough, they're rugged, maybe more aggressive if that study is to be believed. They look okay with this jacket, the proportions are fine, it's the same color, but I would argue it looks better with the other pants, because not only are they nylon, they have the same kind of performance, slightly more futuristic edge, but we've got that green color as well, that nature connection, which links to the outdoor performance element of the Arc'teryx jacket. I think it paints a more vivid, cohesive picture of what the wearer is aligned to, rather than slightly mixed messages. Outfits that look good often do show understanding of the context of their clothing, and they use that to create something harmonious. Of course, you could also do the opposite, turn things on their head, have that sense of contrast going on, but I still think you need to be conscious of the expectations to effectively subvert them. Dye Workwear talks about this a lot in his content. Focusing on men's tailoring, he points out fits looking bad because the different pieces are saying completely different things, leaving the viewer confused about what they're doing and potentially suggest to the wearer wearer isn't aware of the context of their clothing. The small details he's able to articulate here shows just how much there is to discern with this stuff. It isn't just a case of blue jumper equals trustworthy man. One little point though. Until now I've implied that our outfits are like a cover and we are the book inside. We're choosing how to advertise our inner selves to the world. I definitely think it's possible to go too far with this idea. You can dress in a way that reflects your interests, your character traits, even your mood, but you don't have to do this. You don't need to restrict yourself to, ooh, what parts of myself can I reflect on the outside today? I think wearing something that you think is really cool or interesting, that is a justification in itself. That's a good enough reason to want to wear that. So don't think if you like video games and anime, you're not allowed to wear wool, because that would be deceitful about your inner character. Being able to admire and enjoy things that are very different to us, I think, is a great quality. And maybe even in doing that, you're still kind of reflecting something about yourself. And similarly, while we can use visual language to read and articulate what we like about outfits, I don't think it's fair to extrapolate that to going too far into judging what's underneath. I would love it if people were nicer to each other rather than cyberbullying them for their fits. Another great reason why not to invoke too much judgment from this visual language is because often it's not a universal constant, but a moving target. We interpret the language based on the culture around us, and as culture changes, how we interpret things, how things come across, is also going to change. As a great example of this, take a look at the film Crazy Stupid Love. In this, Ryan Gosling's character is meant to be this suave, impeccably dressed, style-conscious guy. Steve Carell's character is exactly the opposite. In the past 10 years or so, this has become a much cooler silhouette, and wearing skinny pants is often talked about as being extremely off-trend. To a 2020s viewer, it's like, why are you trying to change him, Ryan? He looks fine. Oh, and remember Nabokov? Over time, he changed his mind about including girls on the covers of Lolita, even speaking quite positively about them.
This is beautiful, that's a Dutch edition. Isn't it nice? Beautifully done.
I keep coming back to books here, partly because I love the idea of stretching that judging a book by its cover analogy to its absolute limit, but also because we've secretly been talking about how visual language applies to absolutely everything that we look at. Not just clothing, and not just books either. Pretty much everything from cereal boxes to gallery art. Now you're more conscious about it, the idea that anything we look at is made up of these constituent visual parts which we can use to interpret something about what we're looking at, you can use that to apply to anything and hopefully be more receptive to different pieces of art and media. Because I personally find it super cringe when you see people looking at something like art, for example, and they think, oh, I could do that, anyone could make that, it's just some brush strokes on paper. Well, what do you associate with those colors? How are the colors applied to the canvas? What is the art made of? How big is it? All of those things are ways that you can think about this kind of media. They help us find an appreciation for more of what the world offers us, and I think that's pretty cool. I've probably covered about 1% of this topic. It really is an entry point into this idea, which maybe you haven't thought about before, or maybe you've not really consciously been able to articulate before. So I'd love to hear how you interpret this idea, how you feel about it, maybe take this concept further in the comments, because statistically, if you've made it this far, you are very smart, so I'm trusting you with some good stuff. Hope you've enjoyed this little conversation. Please do give the video a like if you did, it massively helps out the channel, and of course we'll be back very soon with another video.